We are back. Another episode. Nothing's off the table. I have a friend here. His name's Rob. I met him through Instagram and our friend Kevin, but he is probably the leading guy on social media right now talking about compulsive gambling, gambling addiction awareness, talking about what all these how all these sports books are predatory marketing and how gambling is just a trap and you'll never win, et cetera, et cetera. I have a confession to make to you before we get started.
Hit me.
And I wanted to tell you this on camera. So I have like a little over 10 months in GA. I'd say about a year and a half ago when I was compulsively gambling, and I would lose. I would message you from a fake Insta account and be like, haha, or like I'd win and be like, haha, mother you see you can win. And the funny thing is I remember sitting in my basement one night and I was miserable, bro. It was just like Chinese ping pong, Japanese tennis, anything I could get my hands on. And I remember like one of your clips came up and I was like, not this guy again. But it was like a sign, you know, it was a sign. And I'm really thankful that I'm on the other side and now I get to connect with people like you. He doesn't gamble. He's in recovery. He talks about recovery. He talks about the help that's available out there. I don't know much of his story, so I'm very excited to have you here today and have you share some experience, strength, and hope with the viewers. So, yeah, Rob, welcome, bro. Thanks for coming on.
Thanks so much for having me over. And let it be known that actually happens way more often than you would think.
Yeah, I'd assume.
I've had that same story be played out at least a half dozen times already, which is a lot of burner accounts if you ask me. Yeah. But I'm happy to be here, man, and I'm happy that you're on the other side as well.
Thanks, bro. I appreciate it. So I feel like not everyone is born a compulsive gambler. My opinion is we have a little light switch that's inside of us, and eventually the switch gets turned on and then there's no turning it off. But kind of talk to me a little bit about your childhood and how you grew up, and we can get into your gambling.
Oh, totally. I wish I could tell you I came from like this insane traumatic background and it explains why I became so f***ed up, but that's just not my experience. So I'm still diving into it just as much as you are. Maybe we'll find some conclusions as we go. I grew up in South Jersey. I got a little brother. He's 4 years younger than me. And then my two parents. So it's always been the four of us. And we're about 20 minutes outside Philadelphia where my family lives. And so like my whole life, Sixers, Eagles, Phillies, Flyers, that's what we talked about. That's what all my friends talked about. When we would play sports, we were emulating the players that we were watching. When we'd go over each other's houses, usually it's centered around seeing a game of some kind, right? If we had a kid's birthday party, it was going to be on a Sunday so that the parents could watch the Eagles game. And when I was in high school, that's when we just rolled out daily fantasy sports in the state of Jersey. So that was 2017. And that was the FanDuels, the DraftKings, the first time that I had seen the marketing. It was like, make the game more exciting, get a stake in the game. And so, you know, it's these little $5 contests with my friends as a 18-year-old. But to me, I'm like, this is awesome. I'm watching the games that I was already watching. I'm making it more fun. And now I can win when they win. It felt like a dream come true, to be honest. And at the time, I was working at an ice cream store making $8.38 an hour, which I still think is the Jersey minimum unless they've changed it. But this idea that I could put $5 on a contest and win $100 versus work 3 days, it was like a no-brainer that I was going to pick the gambling, especially seeing some early wins along the way. And some people don't even call that gambling, but for me, it was exactly how I got started. So grew up with a good family. We would go to Atlantic City from time to time, but as people from South Jersey would know, that's just kind of where the best restaurants are. You either go to Philly or you go to AC, or you take the 2-hour drive to New York, but no one really does that down there. So I grew up seeing the gambling. My family would talk about it. It was normal, but it wasn't like it was ever pushed onto me. It wasn't like I was destined to become a compulsive gambler. It was just normal to gamble. And as soon as I could, I started doing it.
Do your parents like have a gambling issue, or just like they're like normal people that can go to the casino and lose $100 and like, all right, that's it, I'm done?
Exactly. I remember going with them to the casinos, again, for the restaurants. And then like my mom would go with me and my brother to the arcade maybe, and my dad would have 30 minutes to play blackjack, and then win or lose, he wouldn't care. It was like, $100 at most. Same with my mom. Like I guess they would kind of take shifts so they could go and put a couple bets in, but nothing more than an occasional trip, really.
Wow. That thought is very, it's confusing to me. It doesn't, it's like sometimes I go to dinner and like I'm with somebody and they drink half a glass of wine and there's half of the glass left. I'm looking at them like, are you going to finish that? And they're like, no, I'm good. I'm like, what do you mean?
Right.
So I'm assuming your gambling progressed from the $5 fantasy entries to larger bets and sports betting. When did that happen? Did you ever have a bookie, or was it just strictly like FanDuel and stuff?
No, I had a bookie. So it was fast. It was like the daily fantasy contest started on my 18th birthday, February 24th. And then by March, the second week of March, I guess, I was doing West Coast bets, West Coast contests on the fantasy. So the Phillies games and the Eagles games weren't enough anymore. I needed the West Coast games after them. And, like back in high school, they had us getting up at like 5 and 6 in the morning to go to school. I was staying up until 2 in the morning watching the West Coast games play out, 1, 2 in the morning. And so it was probably 2 more weeks after that, maybe the end of March of that year, that I was like, I want to do regular sports betting, because I started paying so much attention to the games from that point. Like I started hyper fixating on it, which is a common theme of mine. Probably an ADHD trait, which undiagnosed, but it's pretty obvious, I think. But I'd hyper fixate on it and I'd be like, wow, sports betting itself looks really cool. I wouldn't have to wait till all these games are done to find out the result. I could bet on the game or the half or the inning. And it already at that point, I was looking desperately for a bookie. I found one at the place that I was working. I was working at a golf course, and he fronted me a line of, I don't know, $2,000 or $3,000 credit, way more than I could pay back, but nothing that would lead to horrendous debt. Yeah. But what happened right away was like, I started to win, and I started feeling like I really know what I'm doing. And that was the year 2017 that the Warriors, I think they went 73-9, or they play 82 games. So they must have gone 72-10, something to that extent. Yeah. But all the time, and this is like a pattern I swore I saw, first half, they'd be down. Second half, they'd win. They were statistically the best third quarter basketball team ever, but I thought that was me seeing that and not the fact that they had Kevin Durant and Steph Curry on the same team. So I was putting in bets on them every halftime, finding myself winning, and all of a sudden the bookie's doubling the credit line. And now it's getting up into close to 5 figures, which again, as an 18-year-old working at an ice cream store for $8 an hour, that was never going to get paid back. But things really didn't spiral out of control until I left for college.
I did casino betting in high school on family vacations. And when I got to college, I got my first bookie. My first bookie ever. I went 13 for 13. $100 bets.
Yep.
And I thought I was like, it's perfect. I don't need to worry about school. I'm going to build my empire on gambling. I'm going to like buy a mansion and do all these elaborate things with just gambling on sports. You went to a good college. You went to Georgetown. I went to GW. We were neighbors. You guys are the smart ones. We're the
rich ones.
Yeah, the rich degenerate ones. How did you balance like sports betting and school? Because I couldn't do that. Couldn't manage it.
Yeah, I would say that I didn't balance it well. With that said, it was like I was able to scrape the bare minimum together. I'm someone that doesn't usually prepare for things. Like I showed up here just off the train about 15 minutes ago. I didn't quite prepare. So when I was in college, I was able to usually get by, B's and C's, doing the bare minimum, but focusing on the sports betting. And what I remember was specifically only wanting to talk to other guys who were betting on sports. And I remember the guy that I ended up living with my senior year of college, who we can get into a story about him and how I kind of screwed him over because of gambling. I remember the first time I met him, he had a sportsbetting.ag account open in front of me. And I was like, we're going to be friends. I was like, I got to tap this guy on the shoulder. But that's what excited me in school. It wasn't, I'm in a new place. It wasn't all these new people I could meet. It was like, can I find other gamblers? And I found them, but no one was ever gambling to the same extent as me. So it just felt like I was running on this hamster wheel where I had to be the gambler. And so I scraped by with the academics, but sports betting and then eventually just casino in general was like my personality, is what I expressed to other people around me.
Were you going to Maryland Live?
I went to MGM National Harbor a couple times, but at this point I'm like 19. I'm like, I'm not risking it.
When did you realize that this gambling tick that you had was actually a problem?
February 8th, 2022. So there's like 3 or 4 years in between there. If you want me to jump to it, I can.
Yeah, no, I would love to hear about the 3 to 4 years and kind of how it progressed and the insanity that you went through, because there's not a lot of people who show up to the rooms of Gamblers Anonymous on a winning streak or like their lives are good. They just want to stop gambling.
Right. That wasn't me either.
Yeah. I don't think I've ever seen that.
I've seen it when younger people get caught by their parents, but their parents are like, this is a problem. And the guy's like, no, it's not. I'm up money right now. But then they never show up again. It's like one time.
That was me.
Yeah.
That was me. 2016.
There you go.
What were those 3 to 4 years like where you were out there?
Yeah. So remember March Madness 2018? There was something historical that happened. Are you a basketball fan?
Yes.
Okay. What happened that year?
Villanova? No.
I don't even know because I stopped watching after week 2 or after the second game day. That was the first time in tournament history the 16 seed beat a 1 seed. It was University Maryland, Baltimore County versus Virginia in round 1, and UMBC took down Virginia. I think they barely put up any points. It was a terrible game, but I didn't gamble on it. And at this point, I had been extended a line of credit with the bookie because of those previous wins that I could no longer afford to pay back. I was spending that money that I was getting, and I was not saving it in the idea that I would have to pay the bookie again, because why would I pay him? I'll just win. When I saw that I didn't gamble on that game and it was the longest odds to pay out on a single game in tournament history, I was pissed. I was like, I'm never going to let that happen again. I'm never going to miss the big payout again. So I took all the credit that I had and whatever I had as cash, and I put the cash onto Bovada and I bet on UMBC to win the game. And then I think I took them on the spread with the bookie. They were a plus spread, and they got smacked by Kansas State next game. I think they lost just about double digits, but it did not cover. And now I had my back up against the wall. I asked the bookie for an extended credit line, and he gave it to me because of the fact that I was up on him. And I ended up betting, I think it was Yankees Nationals, an under on spring training baseball, and they combined for like 25 runs. It was awful. But that was, as an 19-year-old, that was the first time I had to tell my family I gambled too much. Your question was, when did I realize it was a problem? If I was more knowledgeable, I would have realized it right then. But what I thought was, I'm a bad gambler, and that can change. Not when you're an addicted gambler, you can't change that. But when you're a bad gambler, you tell yourself you can get better. And that's what I did for the next 3 years. So rinse and repeat, freshman and sophomore year of college, just misery, the up and down of like refreshing sofa score, checking tennis bets, putting in random player props like LaMarcus Aldridge over on rebounds, and that was going to determine whether I could eat that week. And then junior year comes around, and I tell myself I'm miserable. And I blamed Washington, D.C. I didn't blame the fact that I was broke. I thought I was depressed. Yeah. I was, because I was broke. Yeah. But I said I need to change something. Not the gambling. I need to change where I am. Let me do a semester abroad. And I had 3 options. And it was January of what would be 2019. I'm sorry. No, 2020. England, Ireland, Australia. January. England and Ireland are out. So I go to Australia. Australia has the highest gambling losses per capita in the world by over double the next country. It is the worst place to be if you're addicted to gambling.
Why?
That's where I went.
Why though?
Well, so in Australia, they have a lot of bars and pubs. In almost every single bar and pub, there's not only a sports betting like ATM. It's essentially just like a ATM where you go up and it'll print you a ticket. You can cash it out at the bartender's slot. But they also have a room called the Pokies room, which is basically just slot machines. In some states in America, they would call them skill games. They're not like official slot machines from a casino. They're even shadier, and they're in every bar and pub. And so it's either bar, sports betting place, pub. And then they had a very specific law that backfired on me so poorly. They had a string of one-punch deaths, which I had never heard of. But apparently people were getting so drunk. This happened like 4 or 5 times. They would run up to someone, punch them in the face, and then they would die. And it happened 4 or 5 times. And they were like, we need to stop this alcohol-fueled violence. Let's close all the bars and pubs at midnight or 1 o'clock, depending on the week. Except for one place. The Star Casino in Sydney had a license to serve alcohol 24/7. So you would see this mass migration of the drunkest, most belligerent people straight to the casino every night at 12 or 1. And that's where I was every single time.
So you're going crazy in Australia. Your gambling is now worse than it was when you were in college.
Yeah, progressive.
Never gets better. You come back from your abroad semester. What condition? Abruptly? What condition are you in?
Well, the only condition I was thinking was that I just turned 21. So in Australia, no one gave a shit that I turned 21 because they can drink and gamble basically from the time they come out of the womb. But I came back, and it was because COVID sent all the international students back when the countries went into lockdown. And when I got back, the USA was starting to lock down. So sports were off, and I was like, this is awful. I have nothing to gamble on. And then I get this ad for Poker Stars New Jersey. And I was like, this is it. This is a way to win. I can win. It's poker, right? It's a game of skill. I can figure this out. And so I basically start spending every single day just doing poker tournaments. And people might be thinking like, where's he getting this money from? Is it coming from his family? No, my family's a middle-class family. I was getting all my money because of the loophole in the unemployment policy at the time. They said that if you filed for unemployment, you'd get a stimulus on top of it every single week. And so I got $13 of unemployment. And then this check every single week for, I think it was like $600 or $700. And it was just all straight into Poker Stars. I would win. I'd put it straight into the casino. And it was just a cycle until it ran out.
I remember this time. I was betting on soccer in Nicaragua during COVID with a bookie.
Yep.
My fiance sitting there making faces at me right now. You know what's really interesting is that when you don't have anything to gamble, you find a way no matter what.
Oh yeah.
And I think it's like the same thing as like, there's no alcohol left. Like you'll find a way. Did your family ever bail you out from any of your gambling debts?
Yes. Over the entire time that I was gambling, I can't remember ever paying interest, which is a bad thing. Because the first time it happened, it was like, oh, he made a mistake. He's at school. At least he's not doing drugs. Like, he just gambled too much. Let's give him the money. I always paid everyone back. Like, don't get me wrong. It wasn't just like a straight bailout, but not ever having to pay interest. I never felt the squeeze. I was always able to just get a second job, pay it off over time, keep gambling on the side, even speed it up sometimes if I was to get a win. But I'd always end up in a worse situation eventually. I had a girlfriend who was pretty well off at the time, and she was enabling the behavior as well. I'd basically send a message, hey, I owe X amount of money. Can you send it to me? Sure. Sent. And people might think like, oh, that's awesome. Like you can just, you're good. Like the pressure's off. But as you know, for a gambling addict, all that does is just delay the inevitable. And when you get to it, it's even worse.
Yeah, the bailouts just enable us.
Yeah.
We don't feel any consequences for our actions. We keep doing it.
Yeah.
That was, for me, a really long time. What's your date of abstinence?
It's November the 12th, 2022.
So you get home, it's 2020. When the NBA bubble was the first sport to come back on,
yep.
I'm assuming you started.
Yeah. Oh, I'm a big TJ Warren fan for a couple weeks.
Yeah, that was great. I remember that. What was like the last 2 years of your gambling? How did it progress to finally you getting into recovery?
Yeah, the form started to change, and the purpose that I had with it started to change. So, in the beginning, it was sports that I loved. It was a way to make money, or it was a way to show I was good at something, or even a way to have fun. By this point, it's solely a way to try to make money. And then when that's not working, it's just still happening out of compulsion. So it's shifted from something conscious to almost subconscious. Like I was doing it because I felt like that was who I was. I thought I needed to keep going. And so right around this time, I moved back to school, and we have a house. It's a couple guys. And I had mentioned that I screwed this guy over. That happened towards the end of the year that we were living together. But it was just wake up. We would be in quarantine, and we would end up gambling on things like Wii Sports. Like we'd be playing like Wii Golf and gambling with each other, and then a tennis match would come on, so we'd watch that. And they were putting in their bets too. It wasn't like I was gambling by myself, but I would always lie to them about how much I was gambling. Oh, it's like just divide the amount by 5, and it's what I'm telling them basically. And we go for a year. It's pretty much just that every single day. It's hard to remember too many things because during quarantine, every day felt the same. Wake up, check my bets from the night before, sit on the toilet, spin some slots, chase after the bets all day long. Really, it was just a repetitive cycle. But around the end of that year, and I don't think I've ever shared this story of how I screwed that guy over. We had a ping pong table that we bought. And, it's not for thousands of dollars that I screwed him over, but I can remember just feeling like an asshole after this. He had fronted the money, and then he moved out 2 weeks earlier than everyone else. And we were supposed to pay him at the end of the year because we were broke, and he got money from maybe his family to cover the table. And I remember he told me to sell the table to our neighbors and then pay him back, and then we would pay him whatever we owed him from what was left. I sold the table to our neighbors, gambled all the money, and blocked his number. And we're talking about like a couple $100 here. Whereas like at this point, a $500 bet is what would satisfy me. And we're talking about like $200. And I blocked this kid over it. That was it. We had no bad blood, no animosity. I said, I'm never going to see him again. I'm going to block him because I want this money. Like that's kind of how bad things were getting at this point. And the reference point that I like to give is right around this time, I was able to spin a slot on my phone and then just listen to the sound coming in through my headphones. And I knew how much each bet had won or lost. Because have you ever heard of like the pragmatic slots? Well, your audience probably has. They're like the fruit parties, the sweet bonanzas, the one that the streamers usually play. I memorized their soundboard. So I knew now I can't remember the titles. It was like superb, excellent. There's like tiers of like how good the win was according to them. And I knew the sound, and I was like only looking when it was a specific sound because the other ones weren't worth my time. But I was just spinning it for like no reason because I thought I had to.
Well, how much was each spin?
Oh, I mean, I don't quite remember. And I'm glad that you asked this because it gives me a chance to say it. A lot of times that's the first question that I'll get was, how much was this? How much did you lose? What was the biggest loss? And what I always like to tell people is like, I could give you an answer, but if it's more than what you were spinning or more than what your audience was spinning, they would say, oh, well, I'm not that bad. He's way worse. And if it's less, then they're like, oh, well, this kid didn't gamble enough to tell me anything anyway. So it's usually a win-less situation, but it was all my money, if that answers the question.
I always like to tell people it's the number that you lose in gambling is relative to what you have, right? Totally. And however, the pain and the suffering and the compulsion and the prison that we live in when we're gambling, it doesn't matter if it's $1 a bet or it's $1 million a bet. We share that common feeling no matter who you are.
Yeah.
Like if you're a compulsive gambler and you live in that fucking prison, doesn't matter if you're betting $100 or $5 billion gazillion dollars, you are in that prison and you feel the exact same way that I feel.
Yeah. And zero feels the same for everyone.
I'm going to ask this question because you're like really one of the first, I feel like, compulsive gamblers that I've had on that really understands the recovery side of things. Were you addicted to losing as much as you were winning? Like, did losing was it like the same high as winning? Because for me, towards the end, bro, it was almost like relieving when I had no money left.
I liked losing to a certain extent because it represented a challenge. If I was losing, that means that I had a reason to keep going. I wouldn't say that I had the same exact feeling that you're describing, though I've heard that many times as well from people that have messaged me. But what I would say is like, I didn't care if I won or lost. Either way, it presented another reason to keep gambling. Either I had more money and now it was comfortable to keep playing, or I had to get it back. So it gave me that jolt, like that thrill. It's a challenge.
What's interesting is that people who gamble and are compulsive gamblers. They think that because they've won before, they can win it back again. What are your thoughts around like kind of just that area of and that way of thinking of like, I've won before, I can win it again?
Yeah, broken clock is right twice a day. I think that's the saying. If you keep gambling, you will win, but it's not going to be enough, one, to cover your losses, and two, to make up for all the time that you just wasted chasing after that loss. So how many times, I mean, when you were gambling, did you break even or come out ahead and then didn't stop? And eventually it just ended up in a worse situation.
I don't think I've ever been ahead in my gambling.
Well, that's another answer, I guess. But maybe like the first week or something. I don't know.
The first time I ever gambled, I was 15. I was in the Bahamas. I used a Maryland fake ID. And I took $200 Christmas money and I played blackjack.
Atlantis.
And I didn't know how to play blackjack. I was asking the dealer and people at the table what to do. I turned $200 into $9,000 at 15 years old.
There you go. You're up.
And that was it. That was it, bro. I lost all the money on that trip. But I remember just that feeling the first time, like, this is fucking amazing. I can do this forever. And that was like, it's like when you smoke weed for the first time, they call it chasing the dragon. It was like, that was me. I was trying to chase that feeling forever. Like the high I got from gambling, for me, I would choose over the high from drugs and alcohol that I had any day of the week, any day of the week. And now, bro, gambling is like so publicized, advertise it, accept it. It's no longer taboo. And you have LeBron James and Kevin Hart on commercials and the Manning brothers. Like, it's going to destroy our society.
Yeah, it's not good. And I kind of feel like, for me, I don't know, maybe I'm just like fucked up in the head, but the fact that gambling is being so publicized now, it makes me want to do it less. It's kind of like weed. Like when weed got legalized in New Jersey, I used to pick up weed in like my friend's mailbox. I would drive up to the mailbox and then we'd skirt off. We were like, yes, we got it. Now you go into like a dispensary and they ID you and you wait in line. And I'm like, this sucks. This kind of sucks a little bit. That's a side tangent. But on the topic of Atlantis, I wanted to bring this up because it's one of the worst I ever felt during my gambling. And it kind of illustrates why, or kind of what my mindset was. I remember being there on a trip funded by like gambling at a Caesars property. And they were like, oh, you can go to the Bahamas for free. I'm feeling like, oh yeah, they want me to go to the Bahamas. I'm such a big shot. And I remember going to their sportsbook and placing a parlay. And I can't remember any of the other legs, but it was a 6-leg parlay and it was about to hit. The Knicks were playing the Timberwolves. Are you a Knicks fan? Yes. Okay. They suck. So fuck them for this. But it was probably for the best. They were playing the Timberwolves. And I can't even remember what year it was. It was probably 21 or 22. They were up like 20 points. And there was like 5 minutes left. And I have a cash out option. You know what? Now that I think about it, it was on Bovada. It wasn't actually at their sportsbook, even though I was on location. And I had a cash out option for like 95% of the value. And I was like, they're up 20 points. Like, why would I ever cash this out? I don't want to give up this extra 5% of what I had bet. 5%. The Knicks blow a 20-point lead to the Timberwolves and lose. It was either on a buzzer beater or they missed on a buzzer at the end. And I'm like, I just gambled away all of the money that I had for this trip. And again, I was with the girl that I was dating that kind of enabled the behavior a little bit. Not that I'm blaming her because I was just asking for it. She was just obliging to what I said. And I was like, I need you to get money wired here right now so that we can keep playing. She wired money in. And I took the money that I had, put it all on one roll of craps. Pass line. And then the point was set and I put behind and then it sevens out the next shot. And she goes, oh, what happened? And I said, oh, I lost. She's like, oh, okay. Like, how much? And I was like, oh, all of it. And she was like, what? This all literally happened in like a 1 hour span. That was the worst that I felt, was the Knicks blowing that into trying to get it back right away and doing something insane to try to get it back right away.
Tell me a little about your last couple days gambling, and then let's get into the recovery and your journey the last 2.5 years.
Sure. Let me take you through 2 important dates. So February 8th of 2022, I'm in Paris. I had just had a big sports betting win and I used the money to travel because I told myself, when you win, when you're a successful gambler, you're going to travel the world. You can do whatever you want. You don't have to work a normal job. And so I land there And I got a little bit of time to kill before this dinner that I had scheduled. So what do? Well, I sit down on the toilet for no reason, and I start spinning slots. I gambled away all the money that I had for the trip, every single penny. And it was the first time that I ever asked myself, why did you just do that? And I didn't have an answer anymore. And so, I called a friend, got money for the rest of the trip, scraped my way by. But when I got back, I was like, I need help. And so I sought out my first Gamblers Anonymous meeting. And I remember going in thinking like, I can't possibly be as bad as these people. And then the first guy that spoke talked about scratch off tickets. I'm like, scratch offs? Like, I'm not hooked to scratch offs. This guy sucks. Like, he must just be weird and not me. And he talks about how the reason that he came in that night, it was his first meeting, was because the shavings of the scratch offs got above his gas pedal in his car and he could no longer drive the car. And I was like, if I printed out all my bet slips, what would my car look like? I would not be able to get in the car. And I was like, I can really relate to what this guy just said. And so I started going to meetings every week and I thought, this is great. I'm recovering. Things are getting better. But what I really was doing was I was counting the number of days it had been since doing the thing that I love to do without ever finding a replacement for it. And then November the 12th, 2022 comes around and I wake up feeling sorry for myself after about 8 or 9 months of not gambling. And I say, I'm going to give it one more try because clearly I loved that. There's something about that. It can be different, is what I said. And I won in the morning and I tried to cash the money out, but that particular casino had a 24-hour like ACH deposit to withdrawal period. So I couldn't get the money out till the next day. And I said, that's unacceptable. I'm going to go to that casino's physical property and yell at them at the cashier's desk, and then they're going to pay me out. They told me the same thing. So now I was up money a couple hours since my last bet, not 9 months. And I turned around and I'm in a casino. And I was like, well, my last bet date is going to be today either way. I might as well just keep going. And I spent the next 12 hours on a binge that would put me into debt for the next 6 months. The debt is not what got me to stop gambling, but an experience that I had about 8 hours into the day. I had taken out the cash advances on the credit cards, maxing them out, so I had a wad of cash as loose bills in my pocket, more than I could pay back, like with all the fees. If I deposited everything, I'd still owe money. And I went to grab my phone and all the money fell out on the floor in the bathroom of that casino. And I freaked out. I was picking everything up like, oh my God, I hope no one saw that. I might get robbed. Like, what's going on? And then I get everything and I take a deep breath. But then I start laughing like a crackhead, like just a crazy person. And the reason that I was laughing is because I had this thought. Throw the money back on the floor. It will be better. Because if you do that, someone might pick it up and leave with it. Maybe they'll buy their kid dinner or they'll have a good day of some kind with it. But if you keep it, you're going to go back out there and lose everything. The thought did not stop me. But after I did lose everything, proving myself right, I said, it's never going to be any different than this. And I went back to meetings and I got help. But what was different about that time or this time is that I found a purpose alongside it. And I'm more than happy to talk about what I do now for my job.
Would love to. Yeah, I'd love to.
Following that, I went back to my meetings and I needed desperately to find a purpose. I was at a meeting one night and my friend, who was pretty close in age to me, stopped showing up that week. I gave him a call and I said, hey man, like what's going on? Why aren't you in? He'd gone back to gambling to cope with stress, bad breakup, like just a bad situation. And I said, listen, God knows I don't know what to do, but you don't want to make the same mistakes that I just made because I'm about to clock in for my second shift of the day. This is my 10th shift this week. Like you don't want to do this just because you're upset. Something that I said resonated with him and he came back into the meetings. To this day, he hasn't placed a bet. He's been doing awesome. He just got himself his own house, new job, new girlfriend. Great.
Nice.
That was the first time in a very long time that I felt like something that I did helped someone else. It was always, once I win big, I'll help someone else. Once I am a success, then people will love me. But that just conversation that I had, I was like, oh my God, I want to record that, put it on YouTube, and then 1 million people are going to watch it. And then I did, and 5 people watched it. It was my burner account, my other burner account, my mom, my girlfriend, and then someone random. So thank you if that was you. And I was like, that's not it. This isn't it. This is wrong. And my girlfriend goes, hey, your video sucked. And I was like, thanks, like love you too. She's like, but it was only bad because you were trying to be someone that you weren't. If anyone was to watch that video, it's me staring into a camera with a microphone, much like this one, except it wasn't actually plugged into anything. And it was just running off the camera. And I was staring like this, all rigid. And I was like, gambling addiction is a disorder that affects X millions of people in the United. Like, I was trying to sound like a researcher or a doctor. She said, make it more fun, make it shorter, put it on TikTok. I was like, TikTok? I don't, like the app for kids that do the dances. No way. She's like, just do it. So I'm in a Dunkin' Donuts drive-thru. And I record myself while I'm waiting for my coffee to come out saying that roulette's not 50-50. Something that I think people should know, but apparently did not know. Yeah. Because that video ended up doing 1.3 or 1.4 million in the first 2 weeks. And I was like, TikTok's the best, dude. Like, I'm going to do this every day. And it's evolved now to be where I have conversations with people like yourself. But my essential goal was always help someone to not go down the same path that I did. It became my purpose, and it became an accountability piece in itself. To stay clean, and now we're here today, 3 years later.
Yeah, I love your social media, because you also like, you'll have like a video of a guy like fucking punching the slot machine. You'll be like, You're like, that could be you.
It could.
That could be you if you don't stop gambling. And I think that for somebody like myself, I had this one experience in April of last year, April of 2023. And I was in a casino. I had a newborn baby and my fiance, and they were in LA. I was out in Palm Springs, and I was out there for work, and I lost a fuck ton of money in the casino. And it wasn't planned. I wanted to go to casino for a while, but I just never went, and whatever. I find myself at the casino and I lose everything. Everything. And I remember it was like 1:00 in the morning, and I was hysterically crying, and I was looking around at people jamming slot machines. And I was just like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, look at what I'm surrounded with right now. And I didn't stop gambling then. I gambled for another like 5-6 months. I came down December of last year. But I think people, especially now with just like the glamorization of gambling, people think that it's all, you know, fun and games, and it's like the sexy thing to do. And you have like Dana White and all these guys, like big streamers and betting crazy numbers, and it's like fun and exciting and blah, blah, blah. And it's like, dude, you're not taking a private jet to Vegas to go play in a private room where you can record with Dana White. Like that's not you. Or you're seeing these things on Instagram, right? Like a guy won a $5 parlay to win like $500,000 on like a 28 leg parlay. Like, dude basically clicked a bunch of buttons, had no idea what he was clicking, and like he had a better chance of getting struck by lightning.
And then you see who posted it, and it's like FanDuel.
Correct.
Why?
Correct. Because they want people to do that or try to do that, and it'll never happen. Yeah. For the most part, for the 99.99%, it won't happen. What's your recovery process been like, and how, like, so give some advice to people who are watching who are struggling with gambling. Like, what's the first step someone needs to take to get the help they need?
Yeah. I think the first thing to do is to be honest with people, and it's like a kind of cliche, but if you are clinging on to any sense of secrecy or privacy, you're giving yourself an excuse to continue. So when I was 24, my mom was managing my bank account because I needed that accountability. Did not put me in the running for sexiest man alive, I can tell you that. But it made a big difference because I couldn't lie anymore. And if I was to have money that wasn't in that account, you know, it was as cash. And I was an online gambler, and it really didn't do anything for me. So massive accountability and honesty is a great first step. And then I focused on 4 things in my recovery. It was finding alternative things to do with my time that meant something to me. Not just like playing kickball because you used to play kickball or something like that, but like, what can you do with your time that makes you feel like you're contributing, that makes you feel good? I'd imagine part of it for you could be this podcast. For someone else that's like, you know, on day one, doesn't mean you have to start a podcast, but it could mean, you know, having a conversation with someone in your group. It could be making sure that you show up to a meeting on a specific day because it makes you feel purposeful, energized. It's that kind of thing. The second thing was limiting access to money. So as mentioned, the extra accountability of someone seeing the bank account really can make a difference, because if you have too much ammo sitting around and you're basically allowing temptation into your life, make sure that if you have extra money sitting around, every dollar has a job, it has a purpose, so that you're not tempted to go and waste it. Third, self-exclusions. They're not a one-stop shop to fix the problem. Like, you can self-exclude in whatever your state is, and that's voluntarily banning yourself from the casino or sportsbook that you're playing on. But that's not in itself going to stop it. But what it does is it creates friction. If you have this thought, I want to gamble right now, but it takes you 2 minutes instead of 2 seconds to place a bet, that might be the 2 minutes that you need to calm down and think, is this a decision that I actually want to make? And fourth is not doing it alone. For me, I went to Gamblers Anonymous support groups, but really it's just, who can you talk to air out your problems, work together towards accountability, towards becoming a better person, and towards, just living a life that you want to live.
Yeah, I love, there's a saying in AA that I really love. It's, I came for my drinking and I stayed for my thinking. Before we got in here today, I was just getting ripped by my sponsor, my GA sponsor, for something I did. I was involved in. It was stupid. I didn't gamble. I didn't drink or do drugs, but it was a situation that, as someone in recovery and someone who owes money to other people due to my gambling, like, I should not have put myself in that position. Out of respect for other people, and most importantly, out of respect for my recovery. But I think having that accountability is massive, right? It's like, if I don't have that accountability, I'm just out here doing my thing. Maybe I'm not gambling, but I'm still being a piece of shit. And for me personally, a big part, I drank and I did drugs and I gambled because it was an escape from me sitting with my thoughts that I did not want to sit with. And like, when you're spinning slots or you're sweating a game, like, nothing else matters around you. Nothing else matters. The world can be on fire and you don't care. You only care about what the action's on. Are there any other support groups you would recommend or that's available to others besides going to Gamblers Anonymous?
Yeah, there are other groups. So in my experience, I went to GA. So that's always what I say first, but that doesn't mean that you have to, because there's parts of it that really resonate with me, but parts of it that don't. And even in your example right then, your sponsor is ripping you for something that you did. Some people wouldn't respond well to that. I would. I like not that I like it, but I kind of need like a firm hand to kind of tell me what's going on, or else I won't pay attention to it. But for people that really go and they don't resonate with it, there's Smart Recovery. There's Recovery Dharma, which, to be honest, I don't know that much about either group, but I've only heard good things. And then there's online groups that are not necessarily affiliated with anything. So there's a guy named Jeff Wasserman, who I'd love to introduce you to. He runs a group out of Delaware. It's all online, focused on younger people. Our mutual friend Kevin has a company that he works with called Open Recovery. They've just brought me on to start doing a gambling meeting on Wednesday nights. Gamblersinrecovery.com has meetings running 24/7. It's like cliche to say go to a meeting, but it really does work, and that's why it's the cliche. So even if it's not a GA meeting, it's the ability to share what's going on in your life and hear what's going on in others makes a huge impact. Nice.
Appreciate that.
Yeah.
For everyone who's watching, I'm going to attach Rob's social media accounts in the description of this episode. Reach out to him, reach out to me. If you're struggling, there's a better way of living out there. And, most importantly, there's this guy who comes to my GA room. He's been on my podcast and he says, compulsive gamblers always lose. We never win. You may have a winning moment. You may have a winning week, a winning season, but at the end of the day, compulsive gamblers always lose.
Yeah.
And that's how we'll end it today. Rob, thank you so much for coming on, bro. I really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Yep.